Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, how's everybody? Long time. Wow, sorry about that. Breakfast. I'm here in Dallas, Texas, which is, I don't know, 3 hours flight from my home in San Francisco. And so, yeah, ooh. Hey, everybody, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi, hello, everybody. Hello from everybody. Wow. Problem with Spring security. Whoa. Turn that off. Let's see what we got here. Oh, this one. Let me ask. Okay, I just posted that question on the Spring Security Slack channel. Let's see what happens. They'll get it eventually, but good stuff. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Hey, yeah, good to see you all. Good. All right, so my friends, we have a lot to cover this week, or today. I'm going to try and stream as much as I can while I'm in Texas. I return on Thursday, worst case, I just do today, and I'll try and do something tomorrow. I think tomorrow's going to be even easier to do a stream. But I've got a video I'm working on. It just haven't had the minute. I took a Sunday off. We did a bunch of videos on Friday, and we did have you all watched those interviews with what channel am I talking about? Oh, YouTube. YouTube.com/@coffee-software. Yeah, I should mention I'm join me here on the channel. What channel am I talking about? This one. Okay. There you go. Join me there. It's awesome. I mean, it's not like the best, but could be a lot worse. Let's see here. One thing I'm confused about. Why is StreamYard acting as though I want a mobile experience? I don't. I want the actual. How do I get the? No, that's not it. Oh, maybe it's this. Nope, this. Request. I just want the requested desktop site options. No. Oh yeah, there's no. Sorry. The internal Spring team Slack. I took that question that somebody had posted on Stack Overflow and sent me over on Twitch on this chat, our chat right now. I took that question and I dropped it in right in people's faces possible way. I put it in their queue. They'll probably ignore it for now because they have work to do, but they'll look at it ASAP, I'm sure. It's just sort of like I can only ask for help from them so much. And they're the Spring security team are the nicest human beings, because remember, everybody wants security. Everybody, everybody's using Spring, so the Spring framework team, everybody has questions. but then everybody needs security. It doesn't matter if you're doing batch or messaging or web or WebSockets or whatever. There's a security question. And so, I've just been so very impressed with that team. They have been so patient with me over so many years. And I just thank you, Spring Security team. I love you so much. Oh, coffee. It's actually really pretty outside here today, but I can't open the blinds. You can kind of imagine, right? I've got this like incredible glare in the background there. Okay, so okay, yes, you watched the episodes. Thank you. Good. Yeah, we had Mahmoud Ben Asin, the lead of Spring Batch, on the show. So he's on youtube.com on at Coffee Software. We had Glenn Renfro, lead of Spring Cloud Task, and we also had Oleg Jurkuski, lead of Spring Cloud Stream and Function, on the show. So we had 3 different episodes, all on Friday, I think, or no, maybe one of them was on Thursday. But then we had that, and then on Saturday we had Marcus Hellberg from the Vaden team join us. Excuse me, and that was awesome. So 4 interviews in 48 hours, right? So I took Sunday off and yesterday. Well, I'm working yesterday, but I didn't do a stream or anything. So it's just we'll get back on the horse. It's just been one of those one thing after another kind of weeks. All right, my friends, let's get right into it. Let's finish up what we started last time. So I'll share my screen. Entire screen. All right. Alrighty. Where are we? So, my friends. Oops, wrong file. Right now, I don't know how to make, one thing I want to find out, how to request desktop site on iPad. Oh, I see. This is the desktop site? No, it's not. Nice. They really screwed up the how am I supposed to respond? This iPad app got worse. It was okay. The experience on the iPad was great like a few weeks ago. And now I want to respond to messages on StreamYard to respond to all of you and see your comments and all that. But I can't. It doesn't let me do anything. How do I? Oh wait, maybe it's just because I'm not logged in as the Do I have to log in? Maybe that's what it is, huh? So leave, log in. Okay. Oh my goodness. Sorry, friends. I just this is one of those things where if we don't solve it, I can't answer your questions. It's kind of important. Logged in. Enter the studio. That's better. Yes. Okay. So do I plan to have one session in Kotlin? Absolutely. I'll be doing, we'll be exploring Kotlin. We'll be exploring all sorts of stuff. Not on the Spring Boot stream, right? Because I'm building a bunch of, well, maybe. I'm going to build another module, I think, at some point. There's no reason we couldn't do it in Kotlin. But yes, we did. I definitely plan on having dedicated Kotlin discussions. Kotlin is chef's kiss. I love Kotlin. Okay, my friends. So glad you got something out of it. Thank you for that. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So my friends, where did we leave off last time? What we did was we created a we created a Spring Boot application using Spring Hypermedia, Spring HATEOAS, and I think here. So we created, we had some trouble creating generic representations for both collections and types, for domain types. And, oh, you're welcome, buddy. You're welcome. No problem. And like, let me see. What did that fail? Oh, is it because I'm missing a Postgres? I need my database. Okay, so Docker compose up. Please work. Okay. Good. 3. Right. So to review, we have a hypermedia API. And the reason we care about hypermedia is because it makes it possible to build robust HTTP services that last not for days or weeks or months, but years or decades. Customers doesn't exist. Okay. I need to initialize the DB. So terminal. We wrote that little script, didn't we? There it is. So now let's just run this thing. Okay. Run. There we are. Okay. So now localhost. Yeah. So there's our payload, the customer model list with the customers, and each customer has links inside of it telling you details about where to get all the customers and where to get the particular self ID for this particular customer. So if you want to view the details on just that one, it goes there. And I was having trouble. I got it working with oh, yes. Thank you. Stinky jokes. It's the best. Have you all been watching The Last of Us, based on the video game, right? The show is phenomenal. Just freaking phenomenal. You have to watch it. It's the third episode in particular. Well, there was not a dry eye in the Long household. It was just, oh wow. I can't believe it's all. I tuned in for like I wanted a zombie video game show, and instead I got like some of the best minutes of television programming I've ever seen in my entire life. Up there in the top, whatever, maybe even top 10 individual episodes. Episode 3 in particular, right, was up there. Hello, Ahmed. Good to see you again. Hey, Deshaun. Good to see you, buddy. Y'all, so TWD, The Walking Dead. I read the comic. I never bothered with the TV show. I don't know. I'm sure it's great. I know nothing. I am an idiot. I don't get to watch enough TV. I just know that I watched The Last of Us, and that third episode got me. And it wasn't just me. Go on YouTube. Not now. Definitely not now. You're already there. You're where you're supposed to be. But when you're done with this stream, go on YouTube and just look for Last of Us episode 3 reactions, and you'll just see like a billion videos of people watching that episode and just bawling their eyes out, just crying, sobbing. It hurts. Like that show is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So yeah. But anyway, so I've been watching that, and one of the things I love, the show is so good, by the way, that it actually forced Tammy and I to revisit the game. We started the game back in 2018, and we never got really too far into it because it was sort of like there's a lot of cutscenes, and we just felt like we wanted something more, white knuckle. We wanted the action. Instead, we were watching a movie. Well, turns out the game is amazing as well. And one thing that's common to the game and the TV show based on the game is that they have this character, Ellie, and she loves terrible puns. Oh, she loves them. And it's just, and so the show, she has these amazing puns, yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's see. So anyway, hypermedia. So I was having trouble getting these resources working. Turns out not such a big deal. I think I had to change this to a representation model, and that's it, and everything seemed to work from there. So I created one customer model. I didn't create a customer list model or like a customer. I didn't create a collection model for a customer. I didn't have to. It just did it for me. So then, and I don't want my controllers, which return collection models and customer models. I don't want them to be busy with the work of creating links, right? We saw how to do that. We saw how to create the links manually. But what I want to do is centralize the logic so that whenever somebody renders a customer, in this case, a customer model, that we have an easy way to turn that into a resource with links and hypermedia and all that. So we create the representation model, customer model extends representation model. It has a single payload, which is a customer. And then we created a representation model assembler that assembles payloads of type customer into customer models. I use the constructor. I'm saying that the links for this customer should be resolved relative to the customer controller, right? That's this controller up here, the HTTP endpoint. So it has some conventions, customers by ID, etc. /ID. There's the URL for the root of it all. But otherwise, pretty straightforward. Give it a collection customers. I say turn this into a collection model, and then I create links manually on the customer collection model. Whoopsies! I'm supposed to start my stream. Cancel all alarms. Please work. For some reason, my Apple Watch stopped knowing how to do that like a few months ago. Cancel all alarms.
I turned off all your alarms.
Sweet. Yes, the question here is, can you use JDBC template over the ceremonious connection in a try with resources pattern? Yeah, of course. I mean, and that's the way it should be. Like if Spring is creating the data source, then it'll take care of the life cycle. You don't want to do try with resources on that. So yeah, just let's create a bean of type data source, or just use the one that Spring Boot creates for you. And then if you want to create a JDBC template, just inject it into the constructor of the JDBC template. And then it'll take care of preparing the statements, creating the connections, and closing all that up for you as well. JDBC template going strong since 2001. So yeah, so okay, basically pretty trivial, right? I've got this nice, clean separation of concerns. I've got a customer model assembler that extracts out the logic for creating these links, and my entity is like, boring, right? There's nothing particularly special about it. But you can imagine a customer with some state in it, and that's where things get interesting. Is like in this case, I have a Boolean called subscribe, right? And what I want is I can say, okay, well, if it's subscribed, maybe I create a link to whatever. Let's say we go to the controller here, and we create an endpoint here called delete mapping. Nope, delete mapping ID, right? Subscription, and void delete subscription, and who knows what that'll do, but now I can add a link. I can say, okay, add if, right? If person dot is subscribed, then let's see what the parameters. There's a Boolean there, and then there's a supplier. So and if this is true, then create this method, this link to delete subscription. Okay. And with, let's see, link to method on. Do I, Does it need to have like a, whatever, response entity? Okay, so turn response entity dot okay, right? Just for now, let's just build. Okay. And so I can create that delete subscription, and I can say, okay, cancel subscription, right? And so it'll add that link dynamically. Like we can actually add links only if certain state is present, and that makes it means you can build systems that are immune to change, right? Like your entities in the state of your entities are what is responsible for creating the links that allow people to navigate to other states, and that's what you want, right? You want like dynamic systems. So let's see here. Do we have subscribed is false, subscribed is false, false, true? There you go. So cancel subscription. You can see the link is there for this endpoint. Oh, I should probably, obviously that wouldn't work. You want a path variable there. So path variable integer ID, and then this code down here changes. So I need to pass in the ID, which I can do because I have the ID, right? So you pass in the parameters to actually help inform the link building process. Okay, cancel. There you go. So now it says, okay, if I want to cancel this, I'd use this verb here. I'd use this endpoint, and I'd call delete on it, right? So that's the hypermedia part. We got off stream, and then I think I revisited the code that same day after dinner, and I just tried one little thing, and I was like, oh, okay, everything just kind of works now. So there you go. We finally got that working. Let's move on, friends. I didn't mean to spend as much time as we did stuck on that. But it was fun because I haven't played with the Spring Hypermedia stuff in, a fair while, and I was glad we learned something. Git pus. No, that's not what we want. Git pus sounds infected. Okay, so next we looked at the Spring Hypermedia support. We looked at REST. Let's take a step back. I think I kind of, in my haste to get to the good stuff, I think I skipped over some fundamentals that maybe we should have looked at. One thing that is unique about Spring Boot is remember we've got an embedded web server. I think that's pretty obvious. You've got an embedded web server. For those of you who are a little older, I've never seen anyone using Hypermedia in the real world. It's cool, but I don't know what to think about it. Yeah. I mean, I see some people using it, not nearly enough, and that sort of gets to what I was saying earlier, which is if you're going to build REST, then do it right and use Hypermedia. But if you're trying to build services and it's just one microservice in an organization talking to another, and you have control over that, maybe don't use REST. Maybe use something that's actually meant for service-to-service communication, right? Like I hate to say it, but like gRPC or maybe even better, use like something like RSocket or GraphQL. I mean, there's a lot of ways to build services that don't involve REST and that have the benefit of being very consistent and already having all the batteries included that most people who use REST only sort of rebuild after lots of experience, right? Like if you're building a REST service and your goal is to communicate with other services in the same organization, you've got to like figure out security and authentication and filters and hypermedia and schema and testing, and just use something that was, designed for that stuff. Like REST is a constraint on HTTP, but that's sort of like it reminds me of. Do you remember that book by Douglas Crawford, JavaScript: The Good Parts, right? Where he talks about and the old joke was that there's this very thin part of JavaScript compared to like the actual full JavaScript language book from O'Reilly was like this big, and the Douglas Crawford book was like a pamphlet, of only like whatever, a very small subset of the JavaScript language was actually considered good. And I think that's sort of where we are with HTTP. Like I want an HTTP the good parts. And if you look at HTTP the good parts, that's REST, right? But don't call it REST if it's not REST, right? Or do, but just be prepared when people are weirded out who know better when you tell them something and it's not that, So I guess we'll get to that in a second. We'll get to other ways beyond REST. But let's look at something more fundamental here. Let's talk about the fact that I have an embedded web server. You know what? That's a good question. How can I implement pagination with Hypermedia? I mean, it's just an HTTP endpoint, so you can use whatever you want, but I wouldn't do it myself. There's actually another project called Spring Data REST. And so for all the work that we did here, to create these hypermedia links and these controllers and these customer models, all of that was because I'm using a regular JDBC template and I've done the work myself, right? I insisted just for simplicity on, simplicity. Maybe it's not simplicity. Maybe I insisted just for like kind of transparency of what's going on here. And so that we had a chance to talk about low level stuff like JDBC, I used the JDBC template. That said, as some of you have rightly said, oh, hey, somebody just responded to me on the Twitters with a wonderful tweet. And I love this on StreamYard. I can highlight a comment that somebody says and I can put it on the screen. And I wish I could do the same thing now for Twitter. It's become kind of like a reflexive thing that I want to do, you know? Okay. Java's thread construct, unlike, okay, whatever's going on here. For deployment, Docker and Kubernetes, Java 17, so for Docker deployment in Kubernetes, Java 17 is definitely the way. Faster, optimized. It's not much to compare moving Java 8 to 11. It's still hard to do. It's still hard to do is Spring Boot 2.x, 3x thanks to JavaX to Jakarta, especially if you're using JAXB. That's, yeah. If you're using JAXB directly, then yeah, that'll be a problem. Anyway, good tweet. It's just not a tweet in the chat, which is a bit of a bummer. But anyway, so I have got this low-level thing. The point is, if I were using a Spring Data repository, right, then if I were using a Spring Data repository, then I wouldn't need to write all this code. First of all, it would boil down to like an interface with two methods. And then second of all, I could use a project called Spring Data REST, which it sits above Spring Data. So you have a repository and then Spring Data REST sits atop that. And then what it does, it creates a hypermedia endpoint for you, given that repository. So first of all, most of this code would go away. And then second of all, you get a hypermedia, behind the scenes, it uses Spring HATEOAS, basically. So you get that for free. You get pagination, you get all that stuff just built in, right? And I'm hoping we'll eventually work our way back around to Spring Data and then Spring Data REST and all that. Okay. So we have this. Let's talk about the basics here. We've got a embedded web server. We saw that a little bit earlier. We talked about these events, web server initialized event and all that stuff. You have an embedded web server. I'm using by default build.gradle. I'm using Tomcat, right? When I use Spring Boot Starter Web, it brings in Tomcat. And so I can say embedded web server customizer, is it? Web server customizer? Let's see. Ask the autocomplete here. Embedded web server factory customizer. Okay. JD Tomcat web server customizer. Okay, so implement this one. So you can actually implement web server factory customizer configurable. And here I'm going to say I want to customize the Tomcat one, right? I can do that like this. Like that. Okay, so whatever, customizer, Tomcat customizer. And by the way, did you see that amazing blog by Mark Thomas on the Spring? He's on the Spring team, but he's a major contributor to Apache Tomcat, right? He's, basically, if you've looked at the source code for Apache Tomcat for any time in the last 15 years, you'll probably see his name everywhere, right? He had a great blog yesterday about Project Loom and Tomcat. And basically, for traditional applications like the one we're building right now using JDBC and Tomcat and whatever, you get pretty great performance, right? On par with what you might have gotten had you used, like reactive or something, like that, right? Fibers, reactive, whatever. So anyway, the problem with having an embedded web server is that all the configuration is gone. Obviously, it's being done somewhere. It's just not easy for you to see it, right? It's buried in the hooks of the framework. And so with Spring Boot, you have these customizer interfaces, and this gives you a chance to override the defaults. And so, if you wanted to configure the equivalent of Tomcat's server.xml, you could create a customizer like this one, factory dot, and then you can add custom, add connector customizers, blah blah blah, and this in turn, lets you configure the server. It's basically the programmatic equivalent of new Tomcat connector customizers, blah blah blah. And actually, I think you could create a bean of Tomcat connector customizer. I'm not sure. Is this true? Let me see. Functional interface. Does it look for that? I'm not even sure. Let me see. It used to be that you could do something like that. Maybe it's a little different now, but let me see. Compression, connections. Okay, it looks like it's doing something. So what is this? This class right here is Tomcat Reactive, Tomcat Connector Customizer. How's it getting that? Is it making those available as beans? Who's creating this bean? That's the question. Okay, so here's an example of an SSL connector customizer that configures SSL, customize SSL. So I guess not. I guess these get created manually. So I would start with this. If you wanted to like contribute your own customizations, you could do so by injecting this configurable Tomcat web server factory and then adding connector customizers and adding, engine valve and all that kind of stuff, the URI encoding. And those in turn let you further customize things. Like you see, you can add context customizers or connector customizers, right? You can create implementations of both and programmatically add them this way and get full control over the embedded web server. Here, I'm controlling Tomcat, but you'll have similar. Let me see. This is a interface, interface, and this in turn extends this. So configurable web server factory, and there are a number of implementations for Jetty Reactive and Jetty Servlet, Netty Reactive, Tomcat Reactive, and Tomcat Servlet, Undertow Reactive, and Undertow Servlet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can plug yourself in and get access to the low-level APIs for each of the underlying Java embedded web servers. So you don't lose control at all by using this. Now, of course, you might say, oh, great, I'm going to use that to configure SSL. Don't do that. There are properties. We've already thought about most of the common cases. So, for example, SSL, let's see. Spring Kafka, or maybe it's HTTPS, right? Like header values, certificate. There you go. Management server and server.ssl certificate, SSL certificate private key, etc. So there's an easy standard way to like configure things like SSL across all the different embedded web servers. And so you don't have to use this for that. But if you have some really weird thing that you want to do that goes beyond what Spring Boot is already providing, right? If you want to do something beyond compression and beyond SSL and beyond the standard framework setup, something that you would have otherwise done in server.xml in the Tomcat distribution, then you might use this. But otherwise, don't bother, okay? I'm not going to bother. There's no point. I have no need. The other thing that you can do that is kind of interesting that I don't think really people understand or appreciate, and this is hopefully not an issue if you start, like if you're building programs today in 2023 and you're starting brand new, I don't know why you would need this. But if your world is you're trying to take code from yesteryear, and by that I mean like, let's say 2010 or something, and you're trying to move that over, it's inarguable that there are some interesting servlets out there that do interesting things, and you might want to take advantage of those. I don't know. So what's an example? I can't even think of a great example, but if I had a servlet that I wanted to register, right? If I wanted to programmatically register a custom servlet that coexists with my Spring MVC controllers, right? If I had some servlet, maybe it's a legacy servlet in the organization or whatever, then Spring Boot can register that. Same thing with web filters, servlet filters. That's good. That cold brew, my hotel actually has that cold brew in the. Nice. So can I generate an SSL certificate with certbot and put that in my configuration? I'm not sure. With certbot, you mean like in Kubernetes? I wouldn't even bother with Spring Boot. I just have Kubernetes terminate SSL at the router there, or the load balancer, right? But I suppose, I don't know. My point is, since you have access to everything in the engine, and since we're using as you might have seen by me clicking around here just a second ago, here is the Tomcat connector customizer that configures SSL support. Well, you know, it's using the same callback interfaces that I just showed you, the Tomcat connector customizer, etc. So you could create your own and do whatever you wanted with it, but again, you might just do better to use those properties that it has. Okay, so anyway, moving on. My point is, let's suppose you have a legacy servlet that you want to support and you can't get rid of it, and maybe it does something. So HTTP servlet, okay, let's say, and do get, okay, and I'm not sure if I know I can do. Well, let's see, actually, let's see what happens here, right? So got the servlet request, and then response dot get writer dot println okay, and we'll do response dot get writer, sorry, get headers, that header, I suppose, HTTP headers dot content type, and then I'll use media type dot JSON, I guess. No, I just want text plain. That's fine. I don't need anything special here. Okay. That's a string, right? Yeah, that's a media. Yeah, okay, that's a string, and that's a string. So, okay, I want that. And then what else do I need? I think that's it. Let's just try it. So you can register this servlet. Now, this question you might be having is, how do you like, if I want just a servlet that just listens? Well, I can do this in theory, but this is kind of, you lose control here, right? There's not explicit control. So there's actually something called a servlet registration, right? Bean, and it's a servlet register. I want to register my legacy servlet like this, and so let me see, SRB new servlet registration bean of type legacy servlet SRB dot set servlet equals, and of course here I can have a bean, I can inject it, or I can just, in my case, it's so simple, I can just use it. So ls new, I can just use a new to create an instance of it and pass that in. And then add the URL mapping. So I'm going to say, okay, whenever somebody goes to this URL, which is going to be called legacy, they get that servlet. That's my understanding of how this should work. Let's try it out. Okay. Okay. So we called it legacy. So localhost 8080 legacy. There you go. Right. So I got my servlet registered by hand. So I don't give up servlets. I don't give up my ability to register servlets and all that stuff just because I'm using an embedded web server. It's not like it's all Spring all the way. If you have legacy servlets that you want to run and need to maintain or whatever, that's fine. I think, and we're going to try this out because I haven't tried this out, because why do I care? I certainly don't. But I think you can just do this too. I mean, why wouldn't you be able to? Web servlet, okay. URL patterns legacy. Okay, so now let's see what happens if we just create the bean and new that up. So, well, first of all, I wonder if it gets scanned. Let's just see if it gets picked up by having the annotation on the class itself. I don't know, maybe. So, no, so not found. Okay, fair. What about this? What if I did web servlet, or sorry, legacy servlet? This one, new legacy servlet. No. Am I missing something? So let me see. I think maybe there's a property or something. Servlet scan or something like that. Now I kind of want it to work. Servlet path. Yeah, I'm not sure. And Spring Boot discover web servlet annotated classes, right? Servlet component scan. There you go. Okay, so here we go. That's the one I'm looking for. Servlet component scan. Add that. There we go. Look at that. Here we are. Okay, so you just add servlet component scan. It's not enabled by default, but if it finds this components in the class path with @web_servlet on it, it treats it like an @component, and it even respects the URL patterns. So I can register using this is a new thing. This didn't exist before Servlet 3.0. I want to say right, Servlet 3.0. Let's just go see. Yeah, Servlet 3.0 right here, right? So in my mind, that's a fairly new thing, but that's actually probably not that new, is it? It's probably at least a decade old. And of course, we've talked about this before, but we're no longer using Javax. We're using Jakarta, right? Okay, good stuff. Okay, so servlets are still there. Same thing for web filters, right? So I can actually create a web filter, class legacy filter, extends HTTP filter, is it? Yeah. And do filter on, I want an by the way, you notice that there's two methods there for regular requests and HTTP servlet requests. I'm just doing HTTP here. I'm not doing like some other binary protocol or something like that. So I can, print out before the request, after the request, and let's see if that gets registered or if I have to do something special. Okay. Yeah, look at that, before the request, got after the request. So this filter, by dint of having this annotation on it, got registered and it's put in a path for everything. Now, of course, that might be too much. I might want to have a pattern, and I probably can specify that here. I can say, okay, URL patterns equals whatever, I only want this filter to apply to this URL pattern, okay? And in the same way, there's also a filter registration bean, right? So filter registration bean, I can say a legacy filter, like that, new filter registration bean, passing in new legacy filter, blah, blah, blah. And then I can use the servlet, I can inject the servlet registration beans that I want to make this accessible to. So for example, I can inject that reference and pass it into that, right? Okay, let's just use the annotated form because that's actually pretty convenient. So let's see if that works. Okay. Oops, not open yet. This one's open. Alrighty. Okay, let's see here. So I'm making requests in the browser on the command line there. Good. So yeah, you can see it gets registered for that. But what if I go to my hypermedia endpoint now? So I'll clear the logs here. And I go to just customers, let's say. Nothing in the logs. So the filter didn't get invoked there. So I'm able to create filters that apply to certain endpoints and all that. And also, lastly, now is a good time to remember that I can use public static final strings here, right? Public static, or I can use static final strings. It doesn't have to be public. Path equals legacy, right? So here, legacy dot path, and let me see that path. So you can actually title things together. So if you change one, it changes the other, etc. Okay, so that's the one thing I realized at the end of last stream that we kind of forgot to explore, which is that you still have the full servlet container there. Not that you would need it most of the time. It's just nice to know that it's there. You have access to everything that you had before without having to deal with it in the 90% case when you don't, 99% case when you don't need it or have to worry about it. I have gone. Well, Spring Boot is almost a decade old, right? It came out April 1st of 2014. That was the 1.0 GA version. The first bits of code we announced in 2013. So I suppose if you start counting from 0.3 or 0.4 or whatever those early releases were, then Spring Boot's a decade old. I have gone, a decade, and I don't think I've used this feature like twice. This might be the third time I've used it, and I've never had to use it in code I deployed, right? The only time I needed to use it was there was a time in the 1.x generation I think they fixed it even in 1.x, they fixed it, but there was a time when there was no out-of-the-box support for SSL. And so the documentation would show you how to use these customizers to enable SSL for different containers. But I remember it wasn't consistent. It wasn't like first of all, I'm not even sure if it was supported across all the different the embedded web runtimes. And even if it was supported, it wasn't consistent, right? But that got fixed not too long after. And so we've had consistent SSL support and consistent compression and whatever across all the different embedded web runtimes for years. And so not since all that stuff was fixed did I ever bother with this stuff ever. But who knows? You might have a use case for this. Okay, I don't know. Just wanted to point it all out. Okay. Okay, so I don't need that anymore, do I? Because we've already got the web filter, etc., etc., etc. Good. Now what? Well, friends, I think it's time to take a look at GraphQL. Is that true? Do I want to do a GraphQL? We looked at REST, we looked at MVC, we looked at Timeleaf, and all sorts of other view templating technologies. We looked at I don't even know if we have that anymore. We got rid of all that stuff, so it's just hypermedia right now, and we got core servlet stuff. So let's just go ahead and commit all that. Servlets and HATEOAS. Hypermedia as the engine of application state. Git push. Okay, and so now I kind of want to move on to GraphQL. Now the problem is you can't really have a full conversation about GraphQL and constrain it to just HTTP. So I will do my level-headed best to acknowledge that right here, that this is not a fulsome discussion of GraphQL. We could and should do better, but we just don't have time. Remember, this is supposed to be a Spring Boot walkthrough, and I'm trying to show you the things where these technologies intersect with Spring Boot, because I've showed you Spring Hypermedia, but you could, and hopefully you can see that I just committed. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you for the reminder, buddy. We just did Hypermedia, but the reason we did Hypermedia was because I wanted to show you how that stuff is substantially simpler for the presence of Spring Boot. Every time you're playing around with Timeleaf, you end up in Vaadin. Heck yeah, Vaadin's awesome. And again, I hope people joined us on Saturday. We had Marcus Hellberg join the show. We did a live stream with him from the Vaadin team, and he showed us some of the new stuff in Vaadin Flow and in Hilla framework. And he created this amazing 2 different applications with 2 different frameworks in like 90 minutes. And we even got one of them doing native GraalVM images, right? The other one had some sort of like minor issue that it'll get fixed, right? I'm really excited about that. I've been working with them on that. Is this GraalVM support, native image support? So you can build a Vaadin app, which is, one of the slickest ways to build a web application that I know of, or a Hill app, which uses the best of breed TypeScript and all that stuff. And you can turn it into a GraalVM native image that takes 100 megs. So you've got your web service, your backend, your data logic, and your front end UI, and all that, 100 megs, whatever. Because I'm starting with just a small little web UI, and then I end up a little more complex things and switch to Vaadin every time. Same thing. Yeah, you see, if it works, it works. Like, go with what you know. Like I love what's possible now with modern JavaScript and all that, but it's not like, if I know Java and I'm happy there, and this is not going to be like, an art project where I have to have a very precise level of control exerted over the UI and the design and all that stuff. I'm happy to just let Vaadin do its thing and get me to production faster. Okay. All right, friends. So let me delete all this stuff that we don't need. This is the customer controller. How would we simplify this? Well, we can get rid of all that. Turn a collection of customer. Okay, get rid of all this. Actually, we don't need any of this, actually. Let's just get rid of all of it. So we're going to create a new thing, actually, right? Good. So we've got the customer. We've got the customer created event. We've got the initialization logic in which we added some records to the database. We've got the customer service. Now, let's talk about GraphQL. Now, GraphQL, my friends, is not a new thing by any stretch. It was created by Meta at the time. They were called Facebook in 2012. And the whole point of GraphQL was to sort of appease the people building clients, right? And you've seen us on the Spring team talk about this at length for years. We talked about how clients should drive API change. Clients are the ones that dictate the use cases that then feed into APIs. And so when you start building from the perspective of, I'm going to build an API and then they can use it if they want, that's a terrible way to think, right? You got to think, how do clients use it, and then I build APIs. Otherwise, you're just building fat. You're building stuff that nobody needs, right? Actually, I shouldn't say it like that, because fat is delicious. I don't know if you've had a great steak or not, but if you eat steak, yeah. No, what I'm saying is you're building something that's unneeded. It's wasteful, So yeah, you want to like think about, you want to drive API evolution in terms of the client use cases. And so clients, as often, it's tempting, and I do this because I love microservices. It's tempting to build all these different APIs and then have them sort of self-contained and isolated, and that's what you should do, right? But then at some point, the client's going to want all that data, and they're going to want all that data in one place, and they're going to want as much or as little of the data as they need, and no more, to satisfy the view that they're trying to drive on the client, be it a web browser, or an Android device, or an iPhone, or that one dude from the past, the distant past, still using Windows Mobile or whatever, right? But at least it's not to avoid requests at the back end side, right? Just the output. It's just the output to the client in most cases. I'm not sure I get it. It's not to avoid requests in the back end. Well, no. I mean, you can use GraphQL. Like, let's just start with that. I guess it's just easier to see. GraphQL is kind of like in some sense, it's kind of like Spring MVC controllers, or HTTP servlets or whatever. It's just you can build a hello world without ever leaving your code. So let's say hello world GraphQL controller, right? And so I can just say add controller. And remember, we talked about this before, but let's just reestablish. No, the backend can change. You can change the backend to get particular sets of data, right? That would be, you know what? You've just inspired me. You know what I'm thinking? I think it's time to briefly cut over to Spring Data. Okay, let's do that quickly. And I'll roll back my changes here before we get into that. So let's roll back. Okay. What is the change for this? I don't need that. And I deleted this by accident. I want to roll back. Let's roll back. Okay. We're going to keep everything that we had before, including the hypermedia. We haven't deleted that, so it's all back here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and let's change our code here. We'll create a customer repository. Okay. I'm going to create a repository here, and it's going to be an interface. I'm going to extend the CRUD repository interface, and I'm going to bring in Spring Data JDBC, because I think you're right. I think we need to have a considered discussion around data before we can really appreciate GraphQL and hypermedia with Spring Data REST. So it's time to make that jump. So let me see, Spring Data JDBC. So I'm going to bring in Spring Data JDBC, not just JDBC, but Spring. So it's Spring Boot Starter Data JDBC as opposed to Spring Boot Starter JDBC. Okay. So build.gradle. And I mean, this is redundant, right? This, I'm pretty sure, I don't see why it wouldn't, brings in this, right? So let's just comment that out and reload the build. CRUD repository of customer whose primary key is of type integer. But now we're not going to do a full introduction to Spring Data in the stream. That is not the goal, but I think it's time to, actually, I don't even need that. Right there, I've already got everything I need, right? I think it's time to include it, okay? So we've got customer repository. We can rewrite that customer service once we've created the this thing right here. Whoops, at ID. Okay, so it's got a Spring Data ID annotation. I think that's it. I think that's all I need to do at this point, right? Do I need table for Spring Data? I don't think I need that unless I'm customizing. Let's just see. Okay, so my customer service becomes a lot simpler, because now I can comment all, well, let's just try. So add, right? So customer service, I'm going to say var this dot, I need a repository, that's what I need. Okay, comment this out, comment that out. Private final customer repository. Okay, add this to the constructor. Okay, and let's see here. Add this dot repository dot add or save. Okay, customer. And the customer has a name, so we'll say null for the ID and name. Do we have a Boolean here? Do we have a parameter for the subscribed? Yeah, subscribed. Okay, var saved equals that, and we'll say saved. Okay, so return saved. Good. So basically, all that code should be irrelevant now, as should this. And then by ID is just this: return this dot repository dot by ID, find by ID, okay, and it's going to return optional. I don't care. Just return null. I don't care in this case. It's fine. Return this dot repository dot find all. Right. Is it going to give me an iterable? Yeah, iterable. So I just return that. That's fine. It doesn't break my contract. Okay. So now customer service. Let's talk about this. I've got my customer controller, right? And let's just make sure everything's still working as it was before. So we'll reload this. My test is well and truly broken. So I want to turn this into a list. What's the easiest way to get a list or a collection out of an iterable? Anybody remember? Well, Google or ChatGPT collection, or sorry, iterable T2 collection. I could just do a for each and manually add it, but that's annoying. Oh, hey, Fountain. How did they? It's like somebody wrote. It's like ChatGPT built a website based on every permutation of every single possible problem. Iterable.iterator. Okay. So, oh, that's gross. Do I have to do that? Ah, that's a little bit nicer. It's convoluted though. This is more clear. Okay, let's do that then. So, and if I'm going to do that work, I might as well just do it inside the service. That way nothing breaks from outside. So var iterable var list equals new array list of customer. Okay, and then I'll say iterable dot for each c list dot add c. Okay, and that becomes this, and return list. Okay, so now my controller should be fine. Where's my controller? My test is fine, my code is fine. Let's restart that. Oh, it's customer now, so my table is no longer correctly. Let's see. So that's where that table annotation that we looked at earlier that I just dismissed out of hand. Now we know why we need it, right? So we want the name to be customers. Okay. Nope. Hello, Abd Elwad Ahmad. How are you, buddy? What did I just break? Duplicate key violates unique constraint. Customer's name p key. Oh, that's right, because I have an upsert, don't I? So can I do index or something? What do I do to unique? Oh, that's annoying. Okay, let's think about this. What keys do I use? So Spring data, duplicate, key, unique. Okay, duplicate key. So I just want to like model. I need to tell my Spring data code to do an upsert as opposed to doing a just a dumb insert. Okay. JBC upsert, please. Okay. Oh. Uh-oh. So we were just talking about Last of Us, and I found a note. No, sorry, not I. Tammy, my partner, found a note outside of her place of work, and in the game, there's lots of like handwritten notes. And so she just like right now, as we're talking, as I'm on this stream, she sent me a picture of like a handwritten journal that she found laying on the streets outside of her place of work, and she says, "I found this note. And it reminds me of Last of Us." Like, I'm telling you, it permeates the brain. Okay, so version int. That's kind of interesting. What else can I do to direct query? Oh, look at that. Okay, turn purple. Okay, update. So using custom methods, can I override that? Okay, public void. I model it so that this is a key. I just want, did we already look at this one? I think we already did, right? Add customer, mapping strategy, mapping target customer. Oh, bother. Okay, so for now, let's just keep it simple. I just need to get this going. We're gonna do a create table if not exists, name text, no longer unique. Okay, so we'll do that. I'll drop the table. Let's connect to the table here. So PG password equals PostgreSQL, PSQL Postgres, H localhost Postgres. Okay. Oh, it's Postgres. Okay. Up table customers. So if I look at that, good. And run this script again. Good. And this code again. Very good. Okay, it's up and running. We could have duplicate data, but for now, I don't care. Moving on. So everything seems to be fine. We didn't break the contract, and now we have substantially less code, but we still have this controller layer, right? And so remember, I was just saying we can use Spring Data REST to do that work for us. And the way that works is you go here and get Spring Data REST repositories, and that dependency just looks like this, right? And there's even it's very simple. Okay, so go to our build, got Gradle, add that in. Okay, so let me checkpoint this code, git commit data JVC, git push. Okay, and I think we can agree we don't need this. So now we have Spring Data REST. We should just be able to either make our interface public or add repository to it. Now, this is one thing I'd never loved about Spring Data JDBC is that this interface has to be public, right? Or you have to be explicit about it. Like, I don't know why the visibility of the type determines whether it gets used as a hypermedia API. So let me go over here. We're going to comment out all of this. Okay, so this class shouldn't be picked up. In fact, let's just get rid of all of this stuff. Let's just get rid of all of it so I don't have to worry about it interfering with Spring Data REST. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, so localhost 8080 customers, nothing. Sad. Oh, did I rebuild the Gradle build? Looks like I did. It doesn't seem to think I need to, so that seems fine. Okay, so what do we do? We've got this one. Profile, okay, that still works. What about customers though? Right, so control that, delete that. This is an entity. Picked up by that. I've got a repository here. And okay, so Spring Data REST. Let's just quickly move over to that. And again, this stuff always gets better and better. You know what? Always look for a guide first. Before you read the documentation, go to the guides. There might be something simple. Data REST. Yes. Okay. Here's our entity. Okay. We want to command line runner. Okay, Spring Boot API. How did they? Okay. If you're not up to date on Spring Boot and how it works, you should watch one of Josh Long's introductory presentations. That guy might know something. I wonder what he's saying. Spring Data REST base path equals API. Oh. Wait, so what did he do to, is it really the publicity of the interface? Yeah, see, this has to be public. That's the thing. Okay, whatever. In this case, it doesn't really hurt me. Let's try it again. Okay. Customers. Oh, see, isn't that annoying? Like that shouldn't be, I don't think publicity should determine whether API works or not. That feels weird. You need to be playing The Last of Us, my friend. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It'll get you. And watch the TV show. I don't mean to be a shill for some TV show. Yeah, the show is phenomenal, really. Okay, so anyway, it worked. There we go. Despite my small brain, this has worked. Now, of course, we lost our custom links. Remember, we had those links based on whether it's subscribed or not, right? The subscription is true or not. So we want to recreate that. So, well, first of all, let's see. How do I want to like reset everything every time we restart the app, so that way I don't get duplicate data. Okay. So now it's time to look at another feature of Spring Boot that I quite like for data. And we're not lingering too much on the data side right now. Right now, we're just talking about HTTP APIs, but I think it's time to like evolve our code a little bit here. So the next thing I'm going to do, instead of recreating the database with that initdb SQL, I'm going to create a new file here called schema.sql. And I'll just take this DDL that we have here, and we'll run that we'll paste that into schema.sql. Like so. So there's my schema, and I'm going to create a file here called data.sql. Okay, data.sql, and this data.sql will have all this stuff. Okay, so now I need to undo the mess I made here. So get rid of all that, get rid of all of this, and then we get rid of all of that. Look right. Oh, one more. Okay, almost made it. Good. And then Command Shift 8, Go to the very end, go here, all the way down. Okay, so we take all this, cut, go to data.sql, paste that into there. There's our data, and we can now delete this initdb script. So now, in theory, that gets reloaded every single time we restart the app, assuming we have init SQL for embedded and non-embedded databases. So I'm going to choose always as opposed to just embedded, just for our little demo here. And eventually, we'll move to Liquibase or something like that, right? Excuse me. So there we go. There's our application, our entity, our public repository, which is so weird. Like, okay. And this customer initialization logic, we don't need that anymore because we already have the SQL, schema.sql. So in that case, I want to also, when I do the schema, I want to say drop table customers, right? So that way it's like reset every single time and gets recreated each time. A little violent, but at least it guarantees consistent state. Okay, good. So now let's see about recreating those links. So false, false. Let's insert some data here, data.sql. We're going to say insert into, oh dear. Okay, let's see here. I want to, we want to say Shift 8, comma, subscribed. False. Okay, so it'll be false by default, but let's say this one is true. Come on, subscribe. Okay, and then true. Okay, so now go here. Select all from customers. It's true, true, false. Okay, this column or something changes on the database after first deploy. After first deploy with schema.sql. For this, I'm always using, Flyway is the right choice. The question is, can you do something that is just like only on the first deploy? At some point, you're going to go beyond the toy demo that I'm building right now, and you're going to need real database migrations. So Liquibase and Flyway are the best games in town, right? Okay. And by the way, what was it? Flyway got bought up by a company, Red something, and they were on my podcast, on the old podcast, not too long ago. I don't know. Flyway, beautiful podcast, Redgate. Wow. Okay, so it was a minute ago. This is June 10th, 2021. But if anybody wants to talk to somebody or listen to somebody talking about all the cool stuff that they're doing for Flyway, as of middle of 2021, which, yeah, I get it, is a year and 3/4 away already, but yeah, check that out. Okay, so friends, we've got now our repository. Let's see if we can replace that link. Do I not have drop table? Oh, thank you. If exists. Thank you. See, this is why I love this live stream. I'm starting to love it, is because I get free help, free pair programming. Okay, so, and I didn't even have to ask ChatGPT either. That's so the opportunities are endless, it looks like. Okay, so we've got our service. It's just delegating to the repository, and I'm publishing an event, and I created the event. I wanted the event just for my own notifications, but Spring Data REST can also publish events, I think. So Spring Data publish events on whatever event, application, context events, right? Spring events, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, I think there's a data entity, Spring Data documentation. Reference documentation. What do you mean there's no need for the second if exists schema? Create or drop table if exists, create table if. Yeah, Yeah, you're right. Thanks, buddy. Okay, so event. I know there's a way to do this because I done it, but publishing events from aggregate roots. Okay, domain events. Customize the base entities managed by repositories or aggregate roots in a domain. Okay, domain events that you can use on these aggregate roots usually publish domain events. Spring Data provides an annotation called the domain events that you can use on a method of your aggregate root to make that publication as easy as possible, as shown before. So domain events, return events you want to get published here. Cool, there it is. Yeah, so we do that on the entity itself, I think. Oh, I wonder how you would do that. Is this entity? Oh, it's on the entity though. I don't know if this is going to work with records. We're going to find out here live. Let's do it. Let's see. So, and what event were we publishing? We were publishing the customer created event. Okay. So, how does that work? What return event do you want published here? After domain. What does it want from me? Well, okay, that's interesting. I don't quite understand how I'm supposed to do something here. Okay, let's Google this, friends. I know there's a way to do this in data. Okay. Publish. Okay, first. So service layer or directly inside the aggregate. I could totally do the event publication in the service. That's what I'm doing right now, right? Like I could do that myself, but I don't want to do that. So like I can say, okay, event publisher, publish event, new domain event. Okay, aggregate, event publisher, save existing functionality, service domain in operation. Okay, good. That's fine. That's not what I want. I want to do domain events. So domain events add. Is in the entity itself, I need to have a variable. I don't get what that's supposed to buy me. How do I know which customer was changed? Abstract aggregate root. Well, that's interesting. It's not quite what I wanted, though, is it? I'm going to get that something has changed, but what? What has changed? How do I find that out, right? So, new customer created event. Let's say list of. And first of all, it seems to defeat, like I want to pass in the customer. How do I know which one that is? So that's not what I wanted. I probably want the auditing support, right? So Spring Data auditing support. Oh, yeah. You know what, buddy? You're 100% right. You're 100%, you're 5,000% right. I should have done a list. I should have done that. I owe you a coffee. For some reason, I'm like in an autopilot right now, just looking at this, I'm thinking I must be in the service. I must be in a repository. I don't have access to the entity on the aggregate. You're right. You're right. So that solves that problem. That's nice, actually. If that works, let's try this out. So does this code still work? I've got my application here. Do I have an event listening for the customer created event? Application listener, created a customer created event, return new application listener. So did I have a log for J in here? Yeah, I do. Good. Let's use that instead. Or SLF for J. New customer created. Okay, and we want to say event.getSource.toString. Good. Turn this into a there we are. Good. And let's try. I'm not saving anything. Am I? I need to save something. That's probably why I had the initialization logic earlier. Huh. Okay, so let's. I'm relearning why we did things last week. So let's see. Application listener, application ready event, ready application. Okay, let's see. Fix that. And we want the customer repository. We just need this. Yeah, let's just try the repository for now. So I'll say repository please, dot save new Sean, and of course he's subscribed. Of course. He wouldn't not subscribe. He's too nice. Let's just restart. So did that work? Did we get new customer created anywhere? Yes, we did, but I didn't give it a proper inline. Yeah, thank you. So there we go. We got that, but we don't have the ID. Subscribed is true. Thanks, buddy. I knew I could count on you. See, that helps a lot, but I don't know why I haven't no ID. So what is the issue here? Oh, it's because I don't have. That's so weird. How come I don't have the ID? I don't. What I want is not. I don't want to. So it's after. So void after. Do I? What does it want from me? Okay. Annotation to be used on a method of a Spring Data Managed aggregate to get invoked after the events of an aggregate have been published. But okay, what? I love this. So, Oliver has a soundtrack that he was listening to when he wrote this code. But no, why? How do I get the ID of the entity that was saved? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Especially since records are immutable. Like, it would be easier to do. Is the event? Well, yeah, I guess the event is fired before the save, right? Which is not what I want. So, how am I supposed to have that ID? Let's just think about this for a second. What does this annotation do for me again? So after, okay. Oh, it's just to take care of clearing it. Okay, just on a lark. I just want to see if this makes a difference. Let's turn this into a regular class, which I hate to do because I like records a lot, but let's try. Private final integer ID, private final string name, private final boolean subscribed. We'll create the required args constructor, and then the ID. That make a difference? Like, I can provide things in the constructor. Why would that make a difference? Let's just get rid of the final just to see. I'm going to give it every shot to get this right. I'm going to give it every chance possible to do the right thing here. And it's still found a way to be upset with me. error constructor, blah, blah, blah. Why not? What? Oh, that's cool. New customer created, ID equals 6. Okay, so that does work the way you'd expect if you have a mutable type, which is icky because I don't want a mutable type. I want an immutable. Okay, let's try final. Let's try that. And this now can become a required args constructor. No, it's null. So that field has to be, what if I make that like mutable? I don't like that. I don't like it at all, my friends. That's makes me want to take a shower. That's not great at all. But I mean, Lumbuk gets rid of a lot of the ickiness of it, right? But yeah, that's a bit of a bummer, don't you think? So do I need data? I don't think I do. This just gives me getters, right? I do, yeah. How else am I going to read the data? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I guess we learned something here, which is we need access to the. Okay, I don't need this. I'm using which IDE is this? This, my friend, is IntelliJ, but it's the new UI. People ask me all the time. For like a year now, I've been using this new UI. How do I even? Let me see UI. IntelliJ. Yeah. UI. I don't know. There's a new UI. Oh, there's an update. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm in the installed tab, but whatever. You'll find it. It's a plugin. You can get it out there somewhere. Get rid of that. Restart the ID. UI. I don't know, whatever. It's just Google like IntelliJ new UI, right? This one. Updated 27 January 2023. Settings appearance, is that what it is? Okay. New UI beta, enable new UI. So yeah, it's what does that say? It's, oh wow, the zoom in works. Can you see that? You can actually see my, how do they do that? That's cool. I wonder if it works on Zoom now too. I thought that was an operating system deficiency, but it looks like it works. I'm streaming and I'm doing the accessibility mode zoom in, and I can see on the StreamYard video over here on the left on my iPad that it's zoomed in as well. That's good job. Well done. Okay, so the new UI is a work in progress in an effort to reduce the visual complexity of the IDE and help users focus on their work. You're welcome to submit feedback on your general experience with the new UI and specific design changes. Now, I like the new UI, but what I'm really waiting for is Fleet. When this works right now, last time I checked, yeah, it's still just Java. Yeah, of course, they're not gonna. Everything is Java in JetBrains, right? Even Fleet is, I think, still Java, right? That would be crazy to throw away all the code. But Fleet is like, this is like if you take all the things that you like about JetBrains IDEs and all the things you like about Visual Studio Code and mix them together. It's a brand new user interface with a brand new engine behind the scenes, but they're pulling in logic from different technologies. So here's an example. Here's a Spring Kotlin backend. Yeah, Fleet is a little unusable for me at the moment. It's great though. I mean, when I tried it, I was like, okay, I can see where they're going with this. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing, right? I just couldn't trust it yet. But I periodically download the latest builds and try it out every now and then. So anyway, here's a Kotlin backend and a TypeScript React app on the front end, and they've got it open. They've got both open in the same IDE with the same different with two different tabs, and you can see multiple people making changes to it at the same time, right? Like, and it's all just on the internet. It's all live, integrated. That's what I want, right? Look at that. Three people working with me. It's like, imagine if all of you could join my IDE and we could all write code together. It'd be absolute mayhem. And of course, Deshaun would just be constantly deleting my terrible code and fixing it for me, which would be a little grating, but probably worth it. But yeah, Fleet this is what we want to get to. And this UI, I mean, you can see this is even simpler, right? This UI is this is new UI with new backend, whereas right now all we have is new UI. Built from scratch, but based on 20 years of experience developing IDEs. Yeah, this is awesome. I like it. The only thing I don't like is this crap. Look at this. Configuration, controllers, DTOs, entities. Yeah, yeah, change tab to spaces. Yeah, exactly. It can be chaotic. Good chaos, I suppose. But yeah, this is everything else. Everything about the screenshot, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the possibilities. Get Fleet, try it out, help them make it better. And they just announced they're gonna have support for plugins soon. So that I can't wait for. Like, because right now there's no easy way for third parties to contribute custom plugins. Visual Studio, arguably the single biggest innovation. The single biggest innovation in. I wonder if I can open it up yet. By the way, let's try that. Bear with me here, friends. Not really. It's beautiful outside. It's just too bright. I can't see anything. Nope, that's still too bright. Oh goodness. All right, so anyway, the biggest, yeah, arguably the best feature of Visual Studio Code is the language servers, right? The plugin mechanism, the ability to have a separate process running on the operating system that it doesn't speak RPC, but it's kind of like an RPC. It plugs in. Open all the way to see if the camera. It wasn't about the camera. It's. I can't see my screen. The glare was too bad, right? I don't have the. Do you remember they had the glare? Not whatever, the matte gloss matte whatever screens from like 10 years ago, and they kind of went the way of the dodo when they started moving to the HD 4K or whatever. I don't know, whatever Apple high density DPI screens, whatever. Yeah, they used to have those polarized screens, and those are great. The old 17-inch, people don't remember, but Apple had a 17-inch laptop at one point, and that was awesome. I loved my 17-inch. But yeah, the sun was. That's why I closed the blinds. This is actually a nice room I'm in. I'm in a loft, ALOFT, which are usually sort of hit or miss, but this one's awesome. It's cozy. It's got a lot of space. It feels like I'm in a studio display. It's not a studio display, a studio room. I've got screens and hotel rooms on the brain. Retina, thank you. Retina screens. Yeah, they moved to Retina, and then they deprecated They say that Retina is so high density that it gets rid of glare, and I say, sorta. I'm in Dallas, Texas at the moment, which is a, very nice place with good food. Okay, so anyway, Fleet, they've got new plugins coming. The language server protocol is what made Visual Studio Code take off. Remember, Microsoft built Visual Studio Code, and Microsoft's got a lot of money and a lot of great engineers, but they can't solve everybody's problem. And the problem with other IDEs like Eclipse and IntelliJ and whatever is that if you want to write a plugin, you have to write a plugin using their API, and that plugin had to be in Java, right? Well, now with Visual Studio Code, if you want to write .NET, if you want to write a language integration for .NET, then use .NET. If you want to write it for Rust, then use Rust. Use the tools and languages that are the best and most fit for purpose for the language and ecosystem that you're trying to use. And that means that I can use .NET CLR to write code to introspect other .NET assemblies, and then feedback, type information, and hints and all that over this language server protocol. So, yeah. Oh, hey, if you wanted to quickly get user auth up and running for a POC with a Spring backend, what front end would you use? React, JDBT tokens? Yes. I mean, Jot is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You can use Spring Security Authorization Server. You can use, what is that? I've forgotten the name. Okta and Auth0, they're the same thing nowadays, but you can use lots of different things, right? Google and GitHub and whatever. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the language servers are really amazing, and I can't wait for them to Keycloak. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, great one actually. The language. Oh, see, your machine language servers. They even mention language servers. That's what we want, right? Is language servers. And will they enable the language server protocol that's already out there? Because what that means is that every Visual Studio Code language server, of which there are like an infinite many, right, will now suddenly just work with this. That's what we want, right, is language servers. Let's see. With the help of LSPs, is this the same LSP as Visual Studio Code? Or will it be a custom thing? That would be insane. Why would they do that? I hope they'll just enable LSPs, right? The LSPs, because with LSPs I can write code in Visual Studio Code, in Emacs, I think there's a way to wrap LSPs and use them from Eclipse. I mean, you can use it from VI, you can use it from all sorts of different tools, right? Liskov substitution principle. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be great. I guess what I want is I want two things. I want them to build LSPs using the standard protocol. Then I want them to create their own LSPs for their tools, because they've got better tooling for these languages that they've got on the screen here, right? Like if I could, like I love the Java support for Visual Studio Code because it's based on Eclipse. But come on, right? Like the JetBrains support for Java is years ahead of Eclipse, right, at this point. So if I had a language server based on, if Fleet used the IntelliJ IDEA language tooling for Java, and if Fleet used WebStorm's JavaScript support, and it used .NET Writer's C# support, and IntelliJ IDEA's Kotlin support, and Golang, whatever, support for that, and WebStorm support for TypeScript, and they can burn this one with a fire and never talk about it again. If they did all that, then that would be an amazing experience. But then for the one crazy person that wants to write COBOL or something, and for which there is probably, I don't know, I'm sure somebody will correct me, but for the one poor soul that decides they need to write COBOL, and there's no built-in JetBrains official endorsed way to do that, there's probably a language server in the Visual Studio Code ecosystem that will do it, So, yeah. Strange they would choose JSON instead of anything else really in the marketing material. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, this is not really a language in the same way these other ones are, is it? Yeah, why? I don't even think about JSON as a language, let alone, it's not even that difficult to a format. So yeah, okay, maybe, and HTML, yes, but this, what is going on? JSON is just, okay. Anyway, you can run, and this is the thing, you can run, the idea is that this is on the internet, so I guess you could maybe run it in a browser. I don't know, like you can do that with Visual Studio Code, right? Why not this? So anyway, we'll see. Just subscribe, and I have access to it. I can download it and run it every now and then. Prices to be determined. Trial is available now. So, whatever. Maybe we'll do a stream on that. Let's not do that now, though. We got to move on. So we got now our hypermedia. The only thing that's missing. I lost RIP records. That makes me so sad, though. But this is cool. This is nice. I'm glad we got that. That's really cool. And it is kind of like, look, the only concession I had to make is this had to be mutable, which is you know, gross. But hey, it does work, and it's understandable what's happening. So whatever. Okay. What do we got here? What do we got? So yeah, I mean, JetBrains is they're doing great, right? Eclipse is great too, of course. And again, without Eclipse, there would be no Java experience in Visual Studio Code. Why do we have to do what? Deshaun asks. We moved away from records and we moved to a immutable field so that the IDE so that Spring Data will. Okay, yeah, we changed the entity so that we could publish domain events, and so that the field for the ID would be mutable, because otherwise, when we use domain events, it publishes a pointer, it publishes an event with a pointer to this, but the ID in this is still null in the event. And so I want Spring Data to update the ID in situ and then give me the new reference to. So when I get the event on the consumer side, when I create an event listener for customer created event, and I say get source, and then the source is the customer, the ID is not null, right? It wasn't giving me the view of the data after it's been saved. And I think I wish it would give me like a new entity or something. I don't know, like just give me back the same object, but refetched from the database with the ID. But it doesn't. So, okay, this is the domain event. How would Spring Data know that I want that either? I wish it would just have like a standard set of events. Maybe it does. I don't know. There's probably, like, it just feels weird that I have to publish my own event here. I think I could have sworn there was like events around, you know, updated events. The auditing framework, Spring Data auditing, does this, right? And I'm not sure. Let's see, Spring Data auditing. We got create. Okay, auditor aware. I don't want JPA auditing. Maybe that's not what I'm looking for. Well, this is old. I want the Spring Data docs. Okay. Current reference HTML events. Okay. Auditing. Okay, so you can get events, you can get fields telling you when things have changed. Reactive auditor aware, JPA auditing. I could have sworn there was an event that you could get published automatically when something was persisted. Spring Data, okay. Yeah, well, we'll come back to it. This is not even, all this was just in service of like moving into moving our APIs a little bit higher up the abstraction stack. And, you know, as we've already seen, like, I've got this, this is by ID. So I'm no longer using this customer service. Actually, that's a nice thing. Because we're letting Spring Data REST build the API, I can delete that with impunity, and it'll still do the same things as it was doing before. The hypermedia stuff is being provided by Spring Data REST just based on this interface. I did nothing else. But remember, I lost the ability to create my own custom links. So Spring Data REST links, right? So resource processor, that's this old one. I wonder if that still works. I guess it's a resource assembler class. So we have a resource assembler. Does it just automatically pick that up? I don't know. Let's just find out. Okay, so customer representation model. What do we call it? Resource assembler. Let's code Spring Boot. Okay. What did I do? I deleted it. Let's see where we deleted the servlets and hypermedia. Don't use any model. Yeah, okay. So it is a I guess we can just look at the history here. Git show history. Git show history. So REST hypermedia, that was 222. No, we don't want that. We want to fix the issue. Hypermedia. Okay, good. Let's look at all the code from this branch. This one. Hypermedia. It's this thing right here. Does this just get automatically plugged in Spring Data REST? Let's just find out. Okay, so we'll go down here, paste it just to see what happens. Okay, so if we go here, this is a, so what is the, no, that wouldn't work, right? Why would that work? Because it doesn't have the types. So yeah, okay, so Spring Data REST, is it still a resource processor? Let's see. Association resource. Okay. Resource. Links. I just want to add some links. Collection supported HTML methods. This used to be, there's like a resource processor, and you get a chance to like post-process the representation that would REST resource. Okay. Custom links. Custom links. Spring Data REST. Custom links 2023. Yeah, but I mean, since we're using Spring Data REST now, customizing HTTP endpoints in Spring Data REST. Okay, that's 2022. That's bound to be close enough. Repository REST resource. Okay, we can customize what gets exposed, but okay, so there's these new annotations. If you want to hide the delete method, you can say REST resource exported equals false. So you override the parent repository method and just say export equals false. Customizing supported HTTP methods. Okay. REST resource find by blah, 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 custom find, programmatic configuration. First we REST config equals repository, REST configure, repository REST configure, exposure configuration for this domain type website user with item exposure metadata HTTP methods. Okay, we don't want patch available. So you have these annotations at REST resource, you can put on methods, and you have the REST repository REST configurer, but that's not quite like if I wanted to do a custom URL that for this entity links to a CDN, right? It's not a repository. It's not a repository function. It's just given this ID and this entity. I want to also provide a link to this profile image that lives on S3, right, in a bucket or something like that. Where would I plug that in? And there used to be a resource processor. You could just plug in that. So I think I'm missing something obvious here. Not to mention, my tabs have gotten way out of control. Oh. Okay, so Spring Data REST Resource Processor 3. Contribute links Okay. So is this REST resource? I can create that. That's not what I want though. Okay, repository REST. Oh, you can do cross origin. That's kind of cool. You can tell it to be CORS compliant. Application config, abstract Mongo configuration. Oh, bother. We got waylaid again. Isn't that fun? Like all I was trying to do was get to GraphQL. Domain object representations, okay. Entity. Configure JSON, adding custom serializers, projections, code repository. Code repository. Oh. See this, all this projection stuff, this is what you want to do if you want to create a subset of the data that's accessible to the client. Like if you want to say, I only need this data for this use case, you can have this, there's this whole framework on top of Spring data to make it so that you can do that. But like with GraphQL, you just get that for free, right? You don't need any of this projection and excerpts and all that stuff. Okay, so repository resource reader, excerpt projection, inline address. Okay. Abstract repository listener. Friends, by accident, is this an actual? Well, that's interesting. I think we found what I was looking for earlier. Class my customer list event listener. Does it take a generic type? Extends. Application listener repository event. That's what it is. So repository events are events published by the Spring Data REST repositories. Okay, that's interesting. So I can actually, here's another way to do that. But this only exists in Spring Data REST. Oh, that's interesting. So that domain events stuff that I just did, I wonder if I actually need that. Like I can do on before create, on after create. Okay, let's just say I want to do on after create. On after save, even better. I want after save. So, oh, you got links here. That's what it is. Object linked, on before link delete, on after link delete, on before link save, on before delete, on after delete. So you got these callbacks. Can this do? Okay, so customer repository event listener. Okay, what does this give me? I wonder if this gives me something special that I need. What is this issue? T, what is T in this case? T is my entity, I guess? It must be, right? Yeah, it's my entity type. So T, customer. Okay, there we go. I assume that's what it is. Let's just try that out. Log.info, new customer found, saved. Okay, and we'll say t.toString. Does this get? Well, that's a bit of a bummer. When does this get used? There you go. Okay, repository event handler. Better. So this is a Spring Bean. Okay. So then after, it's a handle after save. So handle after save, public void save. And I just want the data for that. Let's see if this makes a difference. Don't know why it would. It's a bit of a bummer. What do I have to do here? Okay. Declare a handler, create a POJO, and put the repository event handler. This tells the bean post processor this class needs to be inspected for handler methods. Fantastic, but it has to be public? Yeah, okay. Configuration, person event handler. So I just have to export it, right? Okay. Okay, so handle customer save. Am I not saving anything? I mean, I must be, right? So what is that, the domain events? Does that no longer work? Try something else. Handle before save, public void for customer saved before customer saved. It's not getting invoked, right? I have to make this class. This shouldn't be public. No way. Like that would be ridiculous. It's just a Spring Bean. It should get picked up by type. Oh, if this is it, I'm gonna be so sad. So sad. Okay, you're right. We'll give it a shot, but I hope you're wrong. Please don't be right. Please don't be right. It's so icky. Okay, so customer. I mean, does it? It's deprecated, right? Yeah, it's deprecated. Okay, we're close. Why is this not being picked up? Handle before saved. Am I still calling save? Yes, I am right here. Save. So repository.save. Is it because I'm not calling something? I'm not doing the save via the Spring Data REST endpoint. That's probably what it is, which is, oh. Okay, so that gets, okay. I liked what we had before with the domain events. This works, right? This works whether you're just using a regular Spring Data repository or if you're using the REST endpoint. But if you want to do the REST endpoint, then you can also do this custom repository. This is only for REST. That's why this works. So if I do, oh, okay, only for the HTTP save operation. Okay, moving more advanced Spring Data REST stuff. Okay. Just save my atrocities. Okay, commit push. Thank you. It's all done, all good, all happy. Okay, fantastic. So we still haven't figured out how to add a link, my friends. That makes me a bit sad. I mean, we figured out like basically how to do it, but it's not the one I was looking for. There used to be a way I can create a, like if I wanted to override, let's say find by ID, I could say REST resource exported equals false, and that would disable this find by ID endpoint, right? Or I could say at REST resource path equals, or whatever, and then that would control that. But I don't want to do that. What I want to do is create a brand new link that has nothing to do with. There's no way the repository would know about it, and so I don't know. We'll get back to that, my friends. I need to hit the restroom, so bear with me here. I'll be back in just a half a minute or so. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. Rhode Island. It's neither a road nor an island. Just bear with me. Alrighty. Good stuff. Oh yeah, okay, so let me see. We've got some comments here. Oh yeah. Hey, go watch Spring Office Hours in like, when is that? An hour? Less than an hour? Half an hour? I don't know. Soon. We'll be done here soon too anyway. I just want to get started with GraphQL. We said we're going to do it, and the stream has already gone on longer than usual. So we'll go ahead and get something done, and then we'll continue our journey soon. But I got a meeting coming up soon, and frankly, office hours is going to be fun, so I don't want to miss that. Okay, my friends, let's just get into it. Let's leave all the leave all the hypermedia stuff behind us. It has served us well. That said, I think we need to actually show some GraphQL, right? We need to like start using GraphQL, and so GraphQL gives us a lot of the things that we've just done painfully and manually with the low-level hypermedia stuff, and it even gives us a lot of the benefits that we have seen here with just regular old Spring Data REST. Now, what I mean by that is we get easy integration with our data layer. We're going to talk about that later. For now, we're just going to talk about basic Spring GraphQL support. It gives us a schema. It gives us, the ability to work over different protocols independent of the transport. So we don't have to use HTTP. We don't have to use RSocket. We don't have to use WebSockets. We can, but it's not tied to one particular thing. So it gives us a lot of benefits over what we have talked about right now thus far. Now, don't get me wrong. HTTP certainly has its places. It is the protocol of the open web. So if you're building a JavaScript backend, front end, you're going to have an HTTP endpoint by which to proxy or communicate or tunnel all that data. So HTTP certainly is useful there. HTTP is also great if you want to do filtering, right? Remember, the whole point of one of the really big important features of HTTP is that it can be filtered, right? I can put a proxy in front of an HTTP endpoint, add something to the payload, and then send it on to the HTTP endpoint, which makes it possible at a network level to filter HTTP services, right? Not just my Java code, but actual, like, I can write a program over here with one language and write another one over here with that. And so, you get caching, you get security, you get all sorts of stuff without ever changing the downstream service. It's a true pipes and filters model in that respect. So HTTP is great for that, right? So it's still going to be useful. And every time I introduce another protocol or another technology, you have to keep in mind that it's important to learn that new technology and how it ties together with HTTP, right? Because that'll still be the defining sort of feature of your ability to conduct business on the open web today. Okay, now, so we're going to look at GraphQL. I'm going to add GraphQL to the class path. When we use GraphQL in Spring, we're using the Spring for GraphQL project, but we're also using the GraphQL Java engine. Now, the GraphQL Java engine, that's this one right here. We need the GraphQL test. That's what we're just adding right now. And we're going to add Spring Boot starter GraphQL as well. Okay, and so this support, famously, it got a lot of attention. GraphQL Java got a lot of attention. GraphQL Java Twitter API, right? Recently, let's see. There was some great press that came out about it like a year ago. Let's see. LinkedIn is using it. LinkedIn Engineering is using it for their API development, right? Okay, let's see. Twitter, Spring for GraphQL is the recommended Spring integration, of course. Let's see, where's the GraphQL Java? I love the GraphQL Java team. You're amazing. But Twitter is now powered by GraphQL. This is October 2021, right? So it's now powered by GraphQL Java, serving 500,000 requests per second, right? So GraphQL Java is boss sauce software. It's scalable like nothing in the world. It has been used at scale by the biggest organizations on the planet, and it's been around forever. It's the oldest Java GraphQL implementation. It's the longest serving. It's very, very, very fleshed out. It's just an amazing piece of tech. And so when we say, hey, Spring for GraphQL is a nice way to build services, we're also building on the best integration out there by far, right? Like, it's just amazingly good. So you'll get both an amazingly concise, easy to understand, very natural component model and top tier, top shelf performance, and maturity and security and everything else. Okay, so let's use it. So we've got it on the class path. I've got this entity. Before we even talk about data and entities and all that stuff, let's just talk about simple stuff. Let's just build a GraphQL controller. Hello world. So hello world GraphQL controller. Okay, at controller. And remember, at controller has nothing to do with the web. It's just like I said, I talked about this before, but it's just a way to adapt a protocol to your business logic. So be that protocol HTTP or WebSocket or whatever. Okay, and I'm going to create a endpoint here. Schema mapping, and I'll say the type name is equal to query. Okay, and the field will be hello. Now, what this refers to is a definition in a schema file. So it's expecting this. It's expecting a folder called GraphQL. There it's expecting another file called schema.graphqls. Okay, and it can be called whatever .graphqls. You could call it, food.graphqls or customers, and you can have multiple .graphqls files as well. But it's looking for that in this GraphQL folder, and it's expecting you to describe your types. Right now, it's by default you have types, and those types have fields. Right, so it looks like a class with fields in it, and The fields define the things that can be read or called by the GraphQL engine. And there are three well-known types that correspond to the three well-known verbs in GraphQL. There's queries, there are subscriptions, and there are mutations, right? And these are the only ways to change or work with your API. And that means life gets very simple, right? I'm not even sure if this is a valid comment, so I'm going to delete it, but queries, subscriptions, and mutations. A query is a way to read data, a mutation is a way to change data, and a subscription is a way to read data in an ongoing fashion. Where should we store the JOT token? So, okay, wait, questions, actually. Good questions. In your opinion, the objects generated by GraphQL schema, is it good practice to use those as regular DTOs? Sure, why not? I don't generate my objects from schema, but yeah, I suppose you could. Hi, Josh, we have a question about JOT. Where should we store JOT tokens? Yeah, I mean, if you're using Spring Security, it'll have a filter that'll accept a JOT token, and it'll do the right thing about, storing it in the session for you and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand the question beyond that one. Okay, so anyway, point is I want to have one of these three verbs: queries to read data, subscriptions to read data in an ongoing fashion, like sensor data or stock tickers or chats or whatever, and mutations to change state, to mutate state. And by mutate, I mean everything, right? Deletions, updates, writes, creations, reads. I mean everything except for reads and ongoing reads. You do with a mutation: create, update, and delete. They're all mutations, right? So it's very, very simple. You don't have all this like back and forth on, well, should I use this verb or that verb or whatever? It's just very simple. So query, and then the query, I'm going to have an endpoint here called hello, and it'll return a string. And so that's the query, the root query, the well-known global, the conventional type is called query, and it has a field called hello. And these types are available for access from GraphQL. So I'm going to enable a schema explorer called graphical. Okay, I'm going to enable that here in my code. Okay, missing return. Oh, I need to return hello world. Okay. So localhost graphical. There's my endpoint, query hello, and there's my hello world. We can, of course, introduce parameters, right? So we can say name. And you can see GraphQL has some well-known types like string and certain numbers and booleans and whatever, but not a lot. You can define your own types though. That's where it gets interesting. So now I'm going to go to my GraphQL controller, argument string name. Okay. Hit refresh. Oops. Argument name. Oh, thanks. Query. Argument name. Did I miss something? Oh, I did miss something. Name. Fans. It has to see the new query, run it, there you go. So I can pass in a parameter and I get the response back. All right, my friends, I think we're going to leave it there. That's hello world in GraphQL. So technically we got to it today. We did it. It's only been like a week since we've been talking about getting to GraphQL. We'll pick up the discussion of GraphQL in a more full-throated exploration in the next stream. Don't you worry, it's going to be fine. I'll try and stream tomorrow. I think I have some time tomorrow. I didn't know. That's a great question. I have not been very impressed with the GraphQL support I have found inside of IntelliJ. And there's some that are written for like JavaScript developers, right? Not for server-side Spring developers. And those JavaScript ones they're from the perspective of I want to make requests and those are fine. But like for what I'm just doing, I just want, I mean, I find the graphical console to be as useful as anything. Okay, but don't worry, my friends, we're gonna pick it up. Go watch Spring Office Hours. It'll be fine. It's gonna be great, amazing. And I'm gonna go. I have meetings. I've got other stuff. This has been the fun for my day. You know, the amuse bouche of life. And then we'll try and pick it up tomorrow. If not, worst case, I get home on Thursday. So, or maybe I'll even do it on Wednesday. But tomorrow seems very likely because all that stuff. Bye, everybody. Have a great day, a great night, great afternoon, great whatever.